Hello and welcome to Box, the football talk show brought to you by Sportology TV with myself, Ali Drew, and my co-host Uni. On the last episode, I was joined by Joe Walker from Represent Radio, who was talking the madness of the European Super League, all the fallout from that, and also his beloved Crystal Palace. But on this week's episode.
This week, we bring to you a Spurs fan, unfortunately. We're going to have to talk about the Carabao Cup final and everything else to do with Spurs, including Jose Mourinho. But yeah, none other than Harry. Harry, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah. do you want an honest answer? It's just with Tottenham, it's just the same old stuff, really. To be honest with you, I mean, yeah, I sort of expected a bit more from the players yesterday, but in some ways, I always expected we would lose.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's give that a proper intro because. First of all, I know you're just sort of alluding to the Carabao Cup final. But just a general question, just before we talk about that. Talk to me about what it's like to be a Spurs fan in the last couple of weeks. It hasn't been great for your club. A few losses, few draws, Mourinho leaving. It seems to be very unstable at the club at this present time. So just talk to me about what it feels like to be a Spurs fan.
An emotional roller coaster. It's not like supporting another team, like I don't know, like Man City or something, or even United, or I know all these clubs were involved in the Super League as well, but I think they face a lot less stress than Spurs fans, to be honest. And it's just with Mourinho as well, he divided the fan base anyway. And I think the Super League just added an extra thing. And then when Mourinho got sacked, I was annoyed because I personally, even if he wasn't going to get rid of him, there was no point in getting rid of him now because we had the cup final literally like a week later. And the reason that we got Mourinho was to win finals. So what was the point in getting rid of him like a week before a final? I mean, I could get into why because everyone really knows why, but it just didn't make much sense. And I've nothing against Mason as a person or even as a manager because he's so inexperienced. But it was almost like watching, pardon my analogy, but like watching an intern on like his second day being thrown in as like the boss or something. And it's like, he's obviously not going to succeed because he doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have, like, I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing because he must have his own ideas, but he it's too big for him. The job's too big for him.
Well, let's talk about the Carabao Cup final. So obviously it didn't go to plan. It wasn't the lead up in the week wasn't great either. Do you think that if Mourinho had still been there, it would have been a different result?
It's a good question. But I think I would have felt personally a lot more confident going into the final with Mourinho in charge because he's got experience. The sticking point for me was if you're going to get rid of Mourinho, at least bring in someone who's got some experience. It's almost like they gave it to someone who was just there and he thought, I'll just give it to him, to Mason. He's been at the club, he's been at the club for a few years. He's done some coaching. He's a Spurs fan, but he's not the right person to even as an interim. I think if he spent, say, 5 years at the club, maybe like in the sense like what happened with Sherwood, when he was at the club and then training like the kids for like a few years, under 21s, I think it was. So if he did that, then I'd just be like, okay, maybe fair enough, you can throw him in. But Mason sort of doesn't have any experience at all. And we sort of even played the same way that people would have expected us to play with Mourinho anyway. So it was like, well, what was the point in sacking him? And then we're just going to play the same way because Mason said to the press, we're going to play this high attacking style, like sort of like Pochettino. And even in the game midweek, we sort of had that for maybe like half an hour or something. But you're playing Southampton, you're not playing Man City. So here's a major difference. It's like I didn't agree with his sacking anyway, and I think what hurts me the most is more the fact that I just can't see us getting a better manager than Mourinho now.
Actually, then let's talk about the final because just going off Spurs for the last couple of weeks, they have been very lackluster. The performances haven't been great. It seems to be like you don't really have much of a midfield. Your defense isn't great. Only thing that sort of sets sort of pushes you in that top 7 or 8.
Yeah.
With Harry Kane and Son and a couple of the attacking players that you've got. But talk to me about. We know Mourinho probably wasn't the right guy for you guys. There's been a lot of split decisions between your fans on whether he should have gone or been kept. But who would you like, to be honest? When you look at managers out there, which manager would you like out?
Well, our number one choice has gone to Bayern today, pretty much. I don't know if you've heard. Nagelsmann's basically gone.
Okay.
See, I'm not sure anymore, to be honest, because we've sort of tried every single kind of manager there is. Like we went from Pochettino, who was, say, a young progressive manager. He wasn't backed in the transfer market. He wanted to rebuild. We got in Mourinho, who's a serial winner. He's actually won a trophy at every single club apart from Tottenham. He didn't get a chance to do it. So I don't know if that's a fair thing. And they're two very different kind of managers that come in the club and do something completely different styles. We've had even managers like Joel, who was sort of an assistant to a manager. He didn't play like a certain style, but he was very old school. We had Harry Redknapp, who just like go out and express yourselves. Very experienced manager. I actually wanted him at Spurs for a very long time before he came. Harry's brilliant, but like. And when you mentioned sort of like with Mason, in the sense that Harry Redknapp would have taken the job even for an interim basis. I would have brought him in if we got Mourinho, even just for the end of the season, because he would have some sort of experience and know how to deal with these players. Maybe a bit better. But it's just hard to pick because if you look at the list, we've linked with like Graham Potter at Brighton, Scott Parker at Fulham, who are two teams down the bottom. So it's like, I don't know. And then you get the European names like Ten Hag at Ajax, who I think a lot of people are saying he's like De Boer, might be another one like that. Okay. So it's just very hard to pick a manager. I would say maybe Allegri, but I don't know if he would come.
Okay.
Because my reservations with someone like Scott Parker is that I just think it's too soon for him to come in. And I think he kind of needs a few more years in the Premier League. Maybe say if he left Fulham and went to he wouldn't go to Everton now, but it's a team sort of in the middle of the table.
Let me throw a name at you. Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard won the league with Rangers. I know it's a Scottish league.
Gerrard.
What do you reckon about Gerrard? Because I know that's something that's been thrown about.
Oh, I know. I've seen a lot of Spurs posts about that lately. I have not as if he's a bad manager, but I sort of have reservations with managers who have only been in there for 2 or 3 years. And it's no disrespect to the Scottish League, but Rangers and Celtic obviously are the two teams who dominate that league. And then the standard is a lot lower than the Premier League. Yeah. And in the Premier League, anyone can beat anyone. I think we've all learned that by now. So you need to be on it. And I think Gerrard, even if he came to Tottenham, he'd probably be here for like a year or two, and then he'll go get the Liverpool job. So it's not really a solution. So, like I said, I'd probably want someone like Allegri because at least I'd be more confident the guy has got experience.
Okay.
Do you think that whoever does come in, do you think that they need to this summer get some key players in, make some changes, change the style of the way that Spurs play? Because it's not working great.
That's a good point, but I don't think we even have a style anymore in some ways because I just don't know what it is. Because like I said, with Mason, he mentioned, we're going to play this high pressing like Poch. If you watch the City game, we didn't. So it's like, well, what is the style? Because the Spurs way and the way we've all been sort of told growing up, because I've obviously been a Spurs fan since I'm a kid. So is that we need to play this flair, open football, attacking football, attack the other teams, blah, blah, blah. And in some ways, I wouldn't say I want a manager like that, but I think I want a manager who sort of adapts to each game, which is probably why I was very pro Mourinho, because he's got that ethos where he won't exactly play one style every game. He'll change it up. And in terms of key players, we need a centre-half badly. Sorry, a centre-half badly. We need a right-back. I'd argue we probably need another central midfielder even now, because I just don't know who's going to play with Højbjerg. And then it's like, and if Kane and Son go, we're talking like maybe even a whole new team. We're talking.
Basically, but I think you're saying you need 11 new players.
I know, yeah. Not afresh.
Okay, so that's been established. Let's talk about. You know what, we've talked about Mourinho. We talked about the Carabao Cup. Unfortunately, this season, it was all right. I think we were talking about November, December time where you guys were first. People are talking about Tottenham possibly challenging for the title.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, that's not happened. But realistically, you know that this season's probably a write-off for you guys now, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Champions League takes a little bit too far now with some of the results that you've had in the last couple of weeks. But going on from next season onwards, what would you, as a Spurs fan, as somebody who blogs about Spurs, want Spurs to be? Where would you want Spurs to finish?
Well, I used to want us to finish in the top 4, but under this current ownership, I think it's sort of like for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
If you watch what happened with the Super League, I was, even as a Spurs fan, I was baffled we were even involved in it, because I was like, we've only won 1 trophy in 20 years. Why are we in this Super League? So clearly for us, it was a money-driven thing. I mean, I know for all of the owners, it was the same thing, but it was purely money-driven. And for me, for us to finish in the top 4, it's like, well, it's great. You're meant to attract these Champions League caliber of players. But the last time, for example, finished in the top 4 when Poch's second season when he finished in the top 4, if you look at our signings, going back into the Champions League, we signed in Kudu, Sissoko, Janssen, Wanyama, and Paul Lopez. So it's like, well, you make the Champions League, use it to buy better players. That was the whole point. We were sold that dream sort of by the owner, by Levy and the owners, to make the top 4. That's our aim. So then we can buy better caliber players. But you make the top 4 and you don't do that. So it's like, well, I'm not saying I wouldn't care. I want us to finish as high as possible. And if there was a clear plan at the club, because there doesn't seem to be a clear plan in terms of recruitment, because you see a club like Leicester, for example, who, they won the title, of course, but even with their limited funds compared to, say, someone like Tottenham, they're doing better with their money than we are, because their recruitment's so good. And Rodgers gets to pick the players he wants. Even under Mourinho, who you'd imagine, is a serial winner, he's the one manager you would think, if he wants a player, go and get him. He's won a trophy at every single football club he's been to. So it's like, this guy knows what he's doing. And then we went and bought, for example, Rodon, who was, to me, when I look at that sign, I'm like, why? And
Ali's not going to be happy with that because he's Welsh.
Yeah, I know. It's nothing against Rodon as a player, because I think in the future he'll probably be really, really good. And even if you see reports, you're going to hate me even more now, but with Bale, it's like reading about Mourinho saying he didn't want Bale, which doesn't surprise me because he didn't play him that much. And it's like, well, okay, as a Spurs fan, I wanted Bale to come back as much as anyone.
Yeah.
And I still think he did something in these periods. Like, I still think sort of there is a player there, but I think you kind of have to like tailor your football to him and play him in a position where he doesn't have to do much apart from score goals and focus on just attacking, because I don't think he has the legs anymore to get back, just from what I've seen now. And if Mourinho didn't want these players and you bring these players in, there's a disconnect already. And then, I don't know if you watched the documentary, but you know that Steve Hitchen? Yeah. He said he hates transfers. So it's like, well, so you need to sort of flush it from like top to bottom. So if Levy's going to stay, which is probably still going to happen, he needs to literally appoint these people, say appoint a new director of football, appoint a new chief scout who's in line with whoever comes in. Say it's Scott Parker and he wants to bring someone from Fulham. I'm just giving you an example here.
Yeah.
And he goes, employ this guy from Fulham because I've known him for years and years. We've scouted together, blah, blah, blah. So you appoint Scott Parker, you bring this guy from Fulham, but let them deal with like the football side of it. You can just deal with, say, like the negotiations of like selling and buying the players and like some aspects. But if he wants a player, it's only going to cost you an extra 2-3 million, just buy the player.
Yeah,
and I think the massive disconnect with, say, with Mourinho is he wanted a really big signing, like a centre half. And I'll go back to this again, but he got Rodon. And it's like, well, he wanted Skriniar or Diaz. Diaz is at Man City, and I think Diaz was probably a very strong choice for him because he's Portuguese as well.
Yeah.
And so a manager, I think, I've had so many arguments with my dad about this, but at the start of the season, the manager must come in and think, I want to build this team this way.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, there's something that happens in the transfer window, it causes some sort of disconnect in the club, whether it's in the recruitment or Levy just not wanting to pay the money just to buy a player. Yeah. And with Poch, when we had Poch, because we had a clear identity and he was a clear style of player, you know, a young, hungry player who can play a high press. With Mourinho, he's a manager who, say, for example, wants his certain players, but he wants players who fit, I wouldn't say his style, but that fit his ethos, I guess, of like serial winners. So it's like, well, unless there's a clear connection in the whole club as to who signs who, and Levy just lets them get on with it.
Yeah,
I don't see where it's going to go.
Obviously, there's been a massive disconnect between the owners and fans recently with the, you know, the European Super League. The fallout of that has happened, and obviously the Spurs fans weren't happy to be included in that. What do you think is the solution, or what do you think the punishment should be for the teams that, although they've now pulled out, they chose to do that in the first place? You know, what, as a Spurs fan, what do you think should happen?
Oh, so I think the 50+1 in Germany needs to happen at football clubs, like every single club, because that's the only way to prevent something like that happening again. And I think, I hate to say this, but maybe they deducted points or something. I don't know. It has to be something that hurts them, but it doesn't hurt like the players or fans. Or I even read somewhere saying that they want to take the executives off the board or something. They were discussing that. So even something, I think something like that would probably be the best punishment, because they're the people who tried to start this. So
deducting points for me probably isn't the way, because like you said, you don't want to hurt the players. The players of the match didn't know nothing. They didn't they knew as much as we knew at the same time that we knew it. So they play on the pitch. It's not like for example on Man United, Joel Glazer doesn't come onto the pitch and play. These people need to be.
And it hurts the fans, because then they're like, well, we're getting, my team's got, you know, right down the table.
It's the only reason I mentioned points is because it's when things like this happen, it tends to be points. Yeah. But I think the executives thing, removing off the boards, I don't know how much power the other 14 clubs or whoever's in charge of this has. Is probably the best way to do it, because they're the people responsible for causing this. And I think with the Super League, what really ticked me off is more the fact that they had no relegation. It was in a format where it's not competitive. So it's like football's and sport is competitive. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So it's just.
I think, you know what, just going off this European Super League, I think the good thing that's come off it is that, you know, everyone started to see what their owners are like. Man United, as a Man United fan, we always knew what owners were like, but for it to come into fruition like this and to be put in front of the press and to make such a statement showed us United fans that these people are leeches. We want them out of the club. What's happened now is every team is protesting against the owners. So there is good to come out of this. Everyone wants a 50+1 stance on the club, including myself and my club. So it's worked out in a way that, fair enough, them first 2-3 days of the European Super League were crazy. It seemed like 2-3 of the longest days of football ever.
Came out of nowhere.
I didn't sleep properly for like 2 days.
but now if you have a look at it in hindsight, now you look at it, it's worked out well for a few people, because now we get to see what the owners are like and everything else. But just finally, just going off Spurs, I need to talk about Harry Kane, because there's a lot about Harry Kane potentially leaving, and I hope he joins Man United. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But Harry Kane, listen, how much of a big miss will he be for your club if he was to leave?
Well, now he's our playmaker, and he's our goal scorer all in one. Apart from the fact he's sort of like the talisman of the club, it sort of reminds me of when David Beckham was at Man United in some ways, because he was sort of like the forefront. You know, his Beckham's with United, and Kane's been associated with Spurs for so many years, and he's come through the academy. I think he's almost irreplaceable. I don't know how you can find a player like that. They use this term now, all these youngsters, like generational player. Yeah. So he's probably the one player I would agree is a generational player. His story is sort of amazing in some ways because a lot of people wrote him off, and he sort of came out of nowhere and became this incredible player. Like, he's definitely the best striker in the world for me, and I'm not being biased. Like, he's the best striker in the world.
I'm not being biased. We talked to a Tottenham fan. Yeah. I'm not being
biased. Can Lewandowski do what Kane does, play as a playmaker? I don't think he can. So, and I think Mourinho did make him explode. Okay. And I think he's a better player now than he was before. And if he goes, I think he'll end up at someone like Man City because he wants to get the record he had in the Premier League. And I can't see him going United, sorry. But it's like, if he goes, I don't know how we replace him. We'd have to sort of change the style and change everything, really. I don't know.
The issue is with Daniel Levy being such a when it comes to actual transfers, he's very tight. So with Man United, there'll be an extra 20% tax put on there.
Yeah.
And with Man City, there'll be an extra couple. I think he'll just prefer him going out of the league because it just helps.
Yeah.
It helps.
He could go PSG, but
I don't know. I don't think the league's big enough.
I think there should be a rule where if you're like at a team for the academy and your career for so long, you should have to stay there till you go, because it just ruins it for me. When people leave at the end and they go somewhere else.
I mean, I don't remember with Gerrard when he was linked with Chelsea and he almost left, and they sent death threats and stuff like that. It wouldn't happen at Tottenham, but it's sort of like that. If he left.
Listen, Gerrard, from what we know, Gerrard put in a transfer request. So it was
exactly. And do you remember Rooney almost went to Man City as well, and then they sort of started kicking off. So I don't think anything like that would happen. Yeah.
Everyone was talking about Messi leaving.
It's all
we
live in a different era now. There's no more Ryan Giggs, old school
loyalty,
Steven Gerrard. There's none of these guys no more. Jamie Carragher. There's none of these guys no more. So, football is the way it's going to be. But I think we've talked about Spurs enough. I can see the pain on your face. I don't want to really talk about Spurs anymore.
Relive the final.
Harry, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you, and hopefully next time we get you back on, it'll be after a positive performance.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Right. Take care, Harry.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Make sure you stay tuned because we have lots more coming up on the show. Please keep doing what you can to support us. Subscribe, leave some comments, share, whatever you can. We do really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.